If you have an email list with 100 CMOs, the amount that a Salesforce or a HubSpot would pay to get in front of those 100 CMOs is thousands of dollars, right?
Most people think newsletters are dead. Tyler Denk thinks it's the most important asset you can build. So he took that idea and turned it into a $30 million company alongside the minds who built Morning Brew into a newsletter behemoth that was acquired for $75 million. So in this episode, Alex and Brian sit down with Tyler Denk to break down exactly how creators can build a $1 million newsletter, the creators building the best ecosystems around their brand, what the future of the creator economy and attention economy looks like, the importance of story maxing, and how to world build as a creator.
What are some of the tools that someone could use to really rapidly build an email list?
There's like a few different things. So
That's so smart. I mean, are you doing that?
no.
What are we doing?
Yeah. So the main thing that I want to start diving into is getting a newsletter to 1 million in revenue. I think there's a huge opportunity for creators. Obviously, you're a huge part of that, and what Beehiiv is doing is a huge part of that. But I don't think as many creators know the power of an email list, because creators are more so have a good understanding of building up followers.
Yeah.
And like, hey, I have to have this social presence, and they don't understand the potential on the monetization side by having a newsletter. And with things like ManyChat, like you could build a newsletter pretty fast. When you look at a creator and then you look at an audience size, what's the actual minimum viable audience size that you think a creator needs to have to be able to start generating revenue that's actually impactful?
Yeah, I mean, the legit answer is like one or two, right? You can start monetizing from day one, and there's like a lot of different ways to do that. I think it's changed a lot recently from, I'd say maybe 3-5 years ago, pre-Beehiiv, pre a lot of like the new tools and like the ecosystem that we've built. The answer would be like 10,000, because everyone was trying to be like the next Morning Brew where you go for scale. And if you're doing primarily brand deals and sponsorships, which is how most people monetize, no brand is going to look at you with less than like 10,000 subscribers. So 10,000 used to be that number. Now it's totally different. I think the way that you can think about it, thinking about like the different niche that you're serving, right? If you have an email list with 100 CMOs, the amount, like legit CMOs that are representing large, medium-sized brands, the amount that a Salesforce or a HubSpot would pay to get in front of those 100 CMOs is thousands of dollars, right? And so I think if you're going for mass market, the number is higher. If you're going for more niche and you can understand how to monetize, whether it's founders, CEOs, CMOs, whatever, it really just depends on how you want to monetize, and that dictates pretty much how large you need to be.
And how do those brands decide? I mean, is there a CPM, or is it more so, like you just mentioned, it's kind of audience quality?
Kind of the Wild West, right? So we have something called the Beehiiv ad network, and we pay out everything from $2 to $5 CPC to $3 to $10 CPM, and that's like at a mass scale. I have my own newsletter. And it's like my audience. I'll just use me as an example. My audience is 120,000 startup founders. And so if you are any of these AI CRMs, like all of these companies that are selling into startups, like you kind of, the decision maker is the founder, right?
Totally.
And if I have 120,000 founders, I can charge a lot more to get in front of that audience. I think the other thing that's kind of interesting to think about is like the type of content you're creating. There's like the news aggregation content, which is here's what happened in business, finance, tech, politics. And that's something I'd say is like maybe vulnerable for AI, right? Like you can get news from whoever. If you know Ben Thompson of Stratechery, like he does like deep analysis of tech, like that's a very different,
It's something you can't get elsewhere.
right? Like it's because it's his opinion. It's his lived experience, him following the tech ecosystem for the past, 10, 15 years that he's been doing it. So like I open my newsletter to get his thesis on different things. Same way my newsletter, it's like this week I'm writing a newsletter on South by Southwest. Like you can't ask ChatGPT like, what was Tyler's insights from South by Southwest? It's like more personality driven.
Yeah.
And so there's like a through line there where the more personality driven you are, the more like AI proof it is. The more that people, and it's like the thesis on the creator economy, right? Like people resonate with people. And the less you can be just like spitting out news and facts and more of like a person that people resonate with, the more audience trust you have, which then also turns into like CPM, CPCs, and brands wanting to work with you.
How do you even go about then thinking about the niche that somebody should build a newsletter around? Because I think it's gotten to a point now where you do have to have some either personality or some twist on the newsletter that makes it extremely unique, right? Because of AI, like anybody that's like a creator around talking about content or talking about cars, it's so easy for it to be duplicated by anybody else. How are you thinking? Because like even with big desk energy, like
Gotta be careful.
I know they like
You were so close there.
yeah,
You wanted to too.
I was so close.
I saw it rolling off your tongue.
No, it's because of the song. Like there's
Yeah, of course,
it's
there's a lot.
too natural. Pause. But when you're thinking about picking the niche and finding a way to position it in the market where it's a must read, how do you think about that?
I think a lot of it is, who are you? Who are you? Like, what is your, I guess even take a step back. What are you trying to do with the newsletter, right? I think if you go into like, I just want to make money, and it's kind of like missionary type of like, I want this to be a business. Careful. Yeah, I was thinking like missionary, mercenary, right?
Literally 4 years old. That's unacceptable.
Yeah. The way that I think about it is like some people are just in it because they're like, how can I back into building a successful newsletter that generates revenue? And from there, you can think of like strategically, you know, tons of money, as an example, tons of money is going into AI. Like all of these companies are raising tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. So that's why we personally on Beehiiv have dozens of like thriving AI newsletters, because the demand is so high. And if you just raise $100 million round or $10 million round and you want people to adopt your software and AI, if you build an AI software or an AI newsletter that you have 50, 100, 250,000 people reading, that's the place to allocate that capital as a brand. So I think there's a way to approach the newsletter from the lens of like, I just want this to be a business that makes money. Where's their money in the market? And if it's from the advertising lens, like figure out where there's like tons of, where it's like very flush with cash, which like AI is an example there. The other example is like, what are you passionate about? And like, what do you have a unique perspective? And so just going back to the Ben Thompson example, right? Like he worked in tech, he's followed the industry for 10, 15 years. Like, I don't think he would write a newsletter about like TikTok creators, because like that's not a passion of his, and like that's not where he would provide the most value. And depending on what your niche is, I think there's enough ways to make money from subscription, advertising, events, consulting. There's like so many diverse ways to be able to generate revenue with a newsletter today that I think what I would stick with is like, what makes you unique to stand out? Because it is like what we get all the time is like, how many, is it newsletter saturation, right? Like, are we at peak newsletter? The same way people would say that about like podcast or video or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, what makes your content unique? And so there's some combination of where's their money and like, where's their business model? And I'm happy to go into like the many different business models that are possible. And like, what are you uniquely positioned to serve the market better than anyone else? Because if your content is replicable or you can't differentiate, I think most of the other stuff that you do after that kind of falls through.
Do you think there's any categories that are untapped and or need just a switch up in kind of the content or how the content is formatted?
Good question. In terms of like the actual specific niche of content or the medium, whether it's like video, podcast,
Like, more so the category, right?
Category.
Yeah.
So an example, like a lot of the marketing newsletters feel the same. A lot of the AI newsletters feel the same. Do you think there's any, either A, like categories that are ripe for, hey, somebody should come in and do X, or B, if you went into, let's say, the category of marketing, and you switched up the format of delivering your newsletter like Y, are there any opportunities in that you kind of see like some open gaps?
Yeah, I mean, I think because you brought up like the AI example, there's a lot of here's what happened in AI today or yesterday, and like here's like the weekly recap. What I think a lot of them are missing are like the analysis, like the personality behind it. So I feel like on one end you have like the creator economy of people who are big on YouTube and Instagram and have built like a personality, but they're not doing like the news aggregation. On the other end, you have like the Morning Brew, 1440, superhuman AI, like all of like, this is what happened, and it's like very informative to the reader. But what they're missing is the face and like the personality behind it. Colin Samir did like an excellent job with this, right? Funny enough, Arnold Schwarzenegger as well. Like he has a newsletter of a million plus subscribers on Beehiiv, and it's like news and trends in like health and wellness, and then they'll have like an Arnold's take, and you're like legit getting like Arnold's take on like whatever, whether it's like intermittent fasting or caffeine or red wine or whatever it is. And so I actually think the merging of like a face with a personality that is like opinionated and like more in like the creator lens through like the informative, this is what's happening in XYZ industry, like very few people have done that really well, and I think there's a pretty big opportunity there.
Some of my favorite brands are actually operate like that, and I think there's such a, not to sway over to brands right now, but there's such an opportunity for brands to have that individual that is the face of it. So there's Flamingo State, do you know that brand? They're from LA, actually. So super expensive like luxury soaps and body washes, probably like $70, $80, something along those lines. But they have a newsletter that's letters from the garden, and every week, every Friday, the founder writes like just a long thing covering everything that happened that week at their estate. There's another brand called Bandit Running. I don't know.
Yeah, we're rocking their socks right now.
There we go. So Bandit Running, they have what's called the B Mail. And the B Mail is an entire newsletter that's like coming either from like the creative director's perspective or from the art director's perspective. That's all behind the scenes, their mood boards, everything. And it's such a like an angle that creates infinity with the brand and a
100%.
completely different side.
I literally just wrote a newsletter on this, very meta. It's called story maxing, but basically that exact trend of now that I think we're just at a point where, and we've seen all of these different companies that aren't media companies invest in content and storytelling and editorial. So the Wall Street Journal wrote an article, I think in December, that all of these tech companies are hiring head of storytelling or head of like narrative. And the example they gave was Vanta, which is like an AI security company, like a compliance company, had a head of storytelling for $275,000, to which like everyone on Twitter and X were like kind of mocking it. But I actually think we're at a place where there's so much, there's zero marginal cost to create content with AI. Now it used to be a thing where you'd actually have to like put time and effort into creating content, and now AI makes that pretty much seamless. And if you assume with like vibe coding and all of these other AI solutions that features will eventually kind of normalize, the only real differentiator a lot of these brands have is like the brand itself, the narrative, and like kind of like the vibe. And like, how do you do that? And it's like storytelling and editorial. And so whether it's Kava, who has like this Instagram series called like Bowl Mates, where it's like a dating show for Kava, like people eating like their Kava bowl, or what you just said with like Bandit Running and like the creative director behind the scenes, I think we're going to see more brands invest in content in a very unique way. And I think newsletter could be a big part of that.
Yeah, I'm fully tracking. So for context, like I have a creative studio here, and like we act as an entertainment studio building shows like we don't do Kava, but like Kava Bowls or the Roomies, etc. That is like these shows that operate as different IP for the brand on a completely different account.
I think that's the future, 100%.
Yeah, it's like it's making its way from the formats that worked on TV are now working on social, but then the other layers bring that same entertainment value into email. Right. And I think that's such a missed opportunity that brands don't take advantage of.
I think the high compensation in that role also kind of is a good signal for how important the final 10% for something to actually work really is. Because what we're really talking about is on X, TikTok, Instagram, every unique piece of content has equal opportunity to go viral regardless of our audience, right? And so it's like, how is the quality of every single piece of content that you produce? And I feel like, is email similar where it's like there's a lot of slop in the AI newsletter space, and then there's like the top 3 creators have like that last little 10% that makes them an expert, makes them super unique. Like, what are some of the other niches, I guess, where you think like there's more distribution opportunity for people to kind of come into and be that last 10%, top creator?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the other thing that you hit on there is the fact that we've shifted from this world with like TikTok and Reels where you don't have to have a large audience, but the best content wins, right? And so if you have 500 followers, but your content hits and it takes off in the algorithm, you can reach distribution, which I feel like is very democratizing for smaller content creators and brands. But think about on the flip side of the brands and creators who have invested in getting 100,000 subscribers on YouTube or on Facebook or Instagram, and now their content's in the feed and it's like less reliable. So I actually think the biggest bull case on email is the fact that once you have those 50,000 subscribers, like you actually aren't fighting the algorithm, which is like a pro and a con, right? Yeah. You can see the benefits of the distribution networks of these different algorithms because you can reach escape velocity with very little. But it's also frustrating when you are trying to build the reputations and reliability of like, this is a brand that shows up and creates content, but I never see them because I never find them in my feed. And so email is kind of like the perfect counterbalance of you're not fighting the algorithm. It's a direct audience relationship. And we hear all the time from big creators on YouTube who were either deplatformed or they used to get, consistently 10,000 views on every video. Now they're getting a fraction of that.
Is it possible to reach escape velocity with email? Like, what are some of the tools that someone could use to really rapidly build an email list?
Yeah, there's like a few different things. So what used to be very popular like 5-10 years ago was this referral program that worked really well. I helped build that at Morning Brew.
Is that like Spark Turo or whatever, or no?
There's a few different platforms that help you do it. They all just copied what I built at Morning Brew actually. So
Nice.
So screw them.
Yeah.
But yeah, at Morning Brew, we built such a great brand affinity that we were like, if you like this newsletter and you share it with friends, family, parents, whatever, we'll send you gear. Or like we gave you access to like an exclusive community. We had an exclusive newsletter we send on Sundays just for people who had 3 referrals. We had coffee mugs, hats, t-shirts, like more expensive stuff, but like basically an incentive to share the
like a loyalty
newsletter.
program.
So that worked really well. It's a little bit, I don't know, like overplayed is the word. There's different strategies to it now, and it's not as popular as it was, let's say, 8 years ago in like peak Morning Brew. But referral programs work really well. We have something called like a recommendation network where you can recommend other newsletters. We've seen a lot of success of newsletters basically building a pod of like 4 other creators. It's like a creator pod essentially. And it's like you recommend me and 3 others, I'll recommend you 4, and everyone kind of grows consistently through that. So if one of them goes viral, they all kind of benefit from that. The recommendation network works really well.
Do you have like a feed, like a discovery feed?
We don't have
Is that something you're thinking about?
something like, so
I'm sure you've thought about it.
yeah, for sure. There's other competitors that do have a discovery feed. You kind of get into kind of like the algorithm game again, where you're building more of like a consumer app. And we kind of become the aggregator and like editorial of like, this is good content, this is bad content, this is what we're recommending. We've kind of taken more of like the Shopify approach of we're tools and infrastructure. You probably sign up to a dozen newsletters that are on the Beehiiv platform that you don't even know because we don't have our branding on it. And like, that's kind of intentional. We really just want to be the tools and infrastructure that allows all of our creators and brands to grow, monetize. And we have a bunch of different monetization mechanisms built into the platform. And whether they white label and don't show that they're built on our platform at all is like totally fine. And that's in comparison to a lot of competitors in the space that are the opposite, which you're
Trying to be that discovery
they
engine.
want to be the end all be all. We love like, or I love saying like the whole Amazon versus Shopify analogy. Like some of our competitors are very Amazon, where to find their content, they have the discovery feed like you're mentioning. But like you don't even know whose content it is. You're kind of just going to their like the Amazon.
Yeah, there's so
app.
much less affinity.
And for us, we want to be where like empowering the storefronts and the creators to build these businesses that stand alone by themselves. And so like I'm bullish on that mechanism. There is like a place for discoverability.
I mean, Amazon is a great example too, where you have 6 different, if you're looking for an ice maker, even if you search the brand Shark Ninja Ice Maker, you're going to see 6 different Chinese copycats before you actually get to the Shark Ninja. It's kind of a shitty consumer experience. And I'm sure, Ninja can't do anything about it because Amazon has such a strong network effect, but ideally they would not let that happen, right? And so that's why they have DTC
So there's
and retail.
pros and cons, right? But
Yeah.
I'm sure that Shark Ninja probably benefits a lot from people who weren't even looking for Shark Ninja that were looking for an ice maker and actually landed on their site. So there's pros and cons to each. And that's why I think even in the space that we operate in, the market is big enough for newsletter, website, content creators to be on multiple different platforms. Yeah. But we want to be like the home base of where you build your business. We're like the only one in the industry that doesn't take a cut of revenue. And we have the most diverse monetization options. So that's kind of like our thesis right now.
For the creator that wants to actually start a newsletter, start monetizing it, but they first need to grow, how are you thinking about, hey, this is the best way to get your first 1,000 subs, first 10,000 subs, and then eventually 100,000 subs?
Yeah. First 1,000 is gritty. Like there's like no like real, I mean, you could brute force it with like paid spend, but typically you don't want to put money in paid acquisition until you have like content market fit, which means like people are replying to your email, they're sharing it organically, they're not unsubscribing. Otherwise, I feel like in the 0 to 1,000 stage, you're still kind of like getting your footing. You're kind of figuring out like, is this the right format? Is this the right content? Am I getting the right audience in the door that's retaining them? So the first 1,000 is typically like friends, family, using the existing social networks, like posting on LinkedIn and X. I like didn't launch my newsletter until I had 1,000 subscribers.
I remember, yeah, you had something
So I
around
would
it
just
where it
tease
was
it.
like that.
I would just be like, hey, like I'm working on something. It's going to be dope. I'm not dropping it until I get 1,000 subscribers, and I'd post that on Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. So it's really just using your own distribution channels. Is like the first 1,000. I'd also think there's like a bunch of other not sexy things around small incremental things that kind of compound over time. And so we have a feature where every time you can put an email gate up or like a pop-up gate on all of your content. And so every post that you publish, put up a pop-up gate, people actually can't read it until they put in their email. And if you promote from LinkedIn, you get, a few hundred people to click through, and 1 in 5 will put in their email.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what is the conversion rate on that? Because there's definitely a balance. I mean, in e-commerce, obviously, it's like, should I put up a pop-up? Will that impact my conversion rate? People actually going to the product page. but I want to get their email so I can market them long term. I feel like it's similar for a creator. It's like, I want to capture the email. I need to gatekeep this, but at the same time, I want people to read this thing. And if 4 people,
I think it depends on the strategy and like how good you are driving and like how quality that traffic is. For me, like all of my content is gated. So there's like 2 different gates. There's one is just like a pop-up form, which is like what everyone's used to. It's super annoying. You just exit and continue on. Right. So it's like a worse experience, but they can still read the content. Yeah. Then one step further is like the email gate where they can't actually read a word. It's like, so if you do a good job, and so for example, like.
Are people paywalling that as well?
Yeah, you can do paywalls.
Yeah.
And so, for example, if I have a great hook next week, I'm like, yo, just spent the wildest week in Austin. We went to an all-in live recording. It was super dope. Click to read like the behind the scenes. Like,
I wore the same clothes the whole time.
Yeah, I only had one. I only had one outfit. Like, yeah, exactly. And so if I do a good job of hyping it up and it's to like an engaged audience and they click through and they hit the email gate, if I did a good job and the content seems appealing, like conversion's typically pretty high there.
Yeah.
But it's like a lot of things like that. Like the referral program that I mentioned is another thing you can implement. Probably recommend the referral program once you have like that content market fit a bit later. The recommendation network's free. You can like find like 2 to 3 other creators that are kind of not competitive, but tangentially related, and you all recommend each other. It's like a great way to get your first like 1,000 subscribers. But I think it's like a lot of things that don't scale. You brought up ManyChat earlier. It's like a great strategy. Right now, if you follow me on Instagram, you immediately get an automated message to sign up to my newsletter. I have a VA going through everyone that follows me, sending them a message on LinkedIn and X to sign up to my newsletter. So there's like a lot of like.
Do you know how many subs that's driving a month?
Probably a couple thousand. Yeah.
That's so smart. I mean, are you doing that?
No.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many like right. It's like dumb things. I mean, you can probably even like with Claude Code or Cowork, just have like automate that or whatever.
And do you do that for everyone, or are there certain people like?
I do it for everyone, just because like I have a VA, like, and I don't know how to like train them. Of like this is like an important. Like honestly,
that's my only worry is because I've thought about like the automatic DM, but if there's been like some people that hit me that I'm like I wouldn't want that to happen, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. Why not? I mean, make them get into that marketing exam and broader world, you know? They got to support you.
Yeah, there's definitely been a few girls where I've like followed them on Instagram and then like I'm like trying to like be smooth and flirt. And when they follow me back, they get hit with like an automated like sign up for my newsletter.
Kind of riz though, for me.
Low key.
You know, hit them with the sign up.
I'll get back to you on the conversion rate on these. I'll let you know.
Hit them with the paywall on the other side too. It's diabolical.
Get a date and like a new paying subscriber, like kind of dope.
It's a discount on the date, you know.
Yeah.
Dude, one thing that worked really well for me when I was like hyper focused on growing the newsletter was I didn't put a paywall, or I didn't have a pop-up that like gated the content, but I basically took every piece of content and turned it into a playbook and offered like the downloadable version.
Yeah.
And like that, and that was, I feel it was like 2 or 3 sections within the newsletter after you were scrolling, you were going to like really the meat of it. There was like, hey, like a button for the downloadable version, and that converted like crazy for me. And then it also was like part of my flywheel then for ManyChat and everything else on like LinkedIn, on Instagram, on X, where it was everything that then I was able to use and put behind like basically a Beehiiv landing page. Because like for every playbook, I would create a specific landing page as well. So just like duplicate it.
I was just getting warmed up. You're getting more to advanced stuff.
Yeah, like I was getting into like the deep
like
shit.
So lead magnets is like the other thing that I'd highly recommend. And it kind of goes back to even the first thing we talked about is like, what is the value prop of your newsletter? Who are you? And like, are you a trustworthy person that people want more content from? And if you can like package that up well, technically like you can turn your posts into lead magnets. The thing that I do is like a lot of other founders aren't transparent about fundraising or numbers. And like, that's something that I've, like the whole build in public thing is something that I've really owned. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, I have a lead magnet of our seed deck that raised $2.5 million. Like a lot of founders like aren't publicizing like their actual seed deck with like their real numbers. I have like no shame and I'm totally transparent about all of that. And so if you are, again, working backwards, my ideal reader is a startup founder. And so what do startup founders want? They want like transparency and insights into like what other startup founders are doing who are maybe a little bit further along in their like startup journey than they are. And so I have our $2.5 million seed deck the deck I used to raise $2.5 million. I built a landing page on Beehiiv for that. Every few weeks or days, I'll like basically drive traffic to it, and you can throw money behind that as well. And it converts like crazy. So like lead magnets are also super dope for that.
Have you experienced any drawbacks to building in public?
No, and it's probably like the number one question that I'm such a big advocate for it. I think it depends in like the space that you're in. For like certain companies that have like more IP that's like more sensitive, like, or they don't want their competitors to know how well something is working, I could see them being a little bit more close to the chest.
Right.
But for me, the benefits have like far outweighed every potential downside. Like I'd say of our 120 employees, maybe 30 to 40 had like just been following me previously. And the trust that you can build with people just because they see exactly how much revenue we're driving, how I'm thinking about the business, how we're hiring, like I'm very transparent about that, which then extends all the way to like how I run the company. I share our investor updates, our like revenue, our burn, like everything about the business transparently to like the entire company. And so I think that's always come very naturally to me. But people come from other companies, they're like, hey, our C-suite wouldn't tell us anything that's going on. Like we could have had like 100 million in the bank or $100 in the bank, and we would have no idea what we're doing and how it's contributing to that.
And so it hasn't really caused any problems, like pocket watching from employees or kind of.
No, it's also been amazing for like fundraising. So the story that I always tell is like we raised our Series A in 1 week. We raised $12.5 million, and that's because I did this 2 days ago. We had like a killer February, and I took a screenshot of our investor update. I put it on X and LinkedIn. I was like, yo, February kicked ass, right? So that gets the eyes and attention of a lot of these other investors who are now like following me and like saying,
all in X.
yeah, they're like, well, this company seems like it's popping off. Like, let me follow this person. Then they'll like start cold outreaching and like doing some email. And everyone wants to do like, hey, let's do like a 30-minute coffee chat. And like time's like by far the most valuable thing. Like for me, I don't want to spend 30 minutes meeting this investor who may or may not ever invest. And like, I'd just rather, my thesis is if you build a dope business, they will want to invest whether you built that relationship or not. They're totally incentivized to find the best company.
Say that 20 times because I honestly, that's the number one thing that people trick themselves into when they're starting something is like a wishy-washy investor is a no. Like it's so rarely ever going to turn the tide. Like, and until you get those yeses, you don't really understand that. Where a yes is like, they've been in since the get-go and they're just more so like doing the papering, right?
I'd even say beyond just like the investor relationships, like so many founders and people are like, hey, let's go. There's like a dope dinner with these big name people that I should be going and like waste my Wednesday evening at this dinner for 3 hours. And for me, like it's great being here in South by. I love going to Cannes, but like my focus spot and like safe space is headphones in at my computer 14, 16 hours a day, just grinding.
Just deep house.
And doing these like, Big Desk Energy playlists.
Yeah.
And doing these like 30-minute coffee chats just like add up and like the context switching. And so in this whole building and public thing, these investors come to me and they're like, hey, let's do this coffee chat. I go, rather than that, I'll add you to my investor email list, which is a monthly investor update.
You're straight funnel.
And it's literally a funnel. It's an investor funnel.
Regardless of Beehiiv, we're going to grow that email list.
Yeah, 100%. And so Faraz from Lightspeed had been like emailing me for 6 months. I'm like, finally I was like, dude, I'm just going to add you to this investor update. Yeah. So now he gets a behind the scenes look at exactly how the business is operating and exactly how I think. It's like a big deep dive. I spend 5 hours every month basically doing.
It's kind of crazy that you're building like a YouTuber parasocial relationship with investors.
For sure.
You know, like
100%.
That's a fucking insane hack, dude.
And so after 3 to 4 months of him reading my investor update, when I finally decided that we did want to raise a Series A, he was already primed, right? He had already seen exactly how my brain works and how the company had been operating for the past 4 months. I hit him up. I'm like, hey, like I think we're exploring a Series A. We had a term sheet 4 days later, signed, wired a few days after that. And so I think that's like that funnel is such a smarter funnel in terms of like investor relations. But yeah, the building public has been amazing for us. Going back to the like storytelling and narrative and story maxing and everything we were talking about earlier, like that is a competitive advantage, right?
Absolutely.
You probably can't name many of the other founders like of our competitor.
I have no idea
space.
who runs Substack.
And so
we'll bleep that. Fuck those guys.
Yeah, fuck those guys.
Yeah, fuck those guys.
And they have I mean, the amount, I get dozens of replies to my BD newsletter being like, yo, you're so transparent and like understanding like who you are as a person and what you value and how you're building this business. Like I would never think about going to another platform. And again, like I think that is, especially with AI, this new edge, it's like personality driven, actually building. I mean, it's the creator economy. It's the creator economy being expanded into startups and tech. And I think there's like a huge competitive advantage to that.
Yeah, especially, I mean, it's not just fundraising, it's customers.
It's all funnel. What you said is perfect. Everything in life and business is one big funnel, right? And when I was thinking about if I decided to get more active on X or LinkedIn, like if I only talked about email newsletters, like I could be the newsletter dude. And like there's probably...
Back when Twitter was like
the email guy,
Yeah,
right? Remember
yeah,
that world?
exactly. It still is kind of.
Thank God we moved on.
But I could be like the newsletter guy, and I'd probably have 20,000 people that really gave a shit about that content. They would follow me, they would engage with everything because they want to be like the newsletter experts and follow that. But if I become like the build in public, then it's every entrepreneur, founder, small business who's interested in hiring and raising money. Like the TAM and aperture of people that I can potentially entertain with my content is so much larger by doing this whole build in public thing than just being like a very niche newsletter person. And I do both. But I think that was very intentional.
Yeah.
Because we have people that are, they're a founder of like a medium-sized brand, has nothing to do with newsletter, but they like learning about how I've been able to fundraise and do like investor relations. So now they're like in my funnel.
Right.
They read my content, they sign up to my newsletter.
I think what you're talking about is just the ability for someone in a completely adjacent space to take learnings from you. And that's kind of the core principle of expanding your TAM is like the newsletter would be one. Like I don't have a newsletter because I'm just stupid. I should have one.
Confirmed.
But like I would still get a tremendous amount of value from hearing what you just said, because if I'm building a course or if I'm building a CPG brand, like I'm going to take those same principles and apply it to how I'm going to fundraise for my CPG brand, right? Like I'm going to tell them that I'm going to the factory, document the wins and losses, talk about my thesis for the future, and all of those things apply. And so your personal brand is now kind of taught me a bunch of things, even though I'm not in your customer base. You're not going to raise money for me unless you would take it, which I don't think you would anymore, right?
The two big things that everyone says with AI is like it's taste and it's trust. And I think in a world where everyone can vibe code this new platform over the weekend and like compete in any industry, like if you don't know them, you don't have the trust, it's like very hard to be able to like, so I think actually just building that trust is really important. And then another example is like something you just said. This one girl that works with us, Julia Knight, she's like, her thing is like a fractional CMO, but it's like the perfect example of the power of a newsletter. I think she has anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000 subscribers. So by no means is this like a massive newsletter at scale. But what she does is she writes once a week about her experiences doing like marketing and influencer market, anything like the CMO marketing growth related space. And she's turned that into 5 or 6 consulting gigs that each pay her, call her 10 to 20 or $5,000 to $10,000 a month. So from a 1,000-person newsletter to booking 5 clients for consulting to making probably $250,000 to $500,000 a year from consulting, I think that's like the perfect case of like one, building your funnel, getting your ideas out there in the world, and just being like the fact that she has this mechanism to showcase her learnings on a weekly basis and then turns that into clients. Like she doesn't need 100,000 readers. It's like the power of like content.
I want to go back to, you mentioned TAM for a second. I want to go back to the idea of content TAM. That's something not enough people think about, of like, there's topics, there's ways of positioning things that increase the TAM or lower your TAM as well, right? If you would have just spoken about newsletters, like, I worked with Matthew McGarry at The Hustle, like he only talks about newsletters, that's going to be a much smaller TAM than talking about everything that you're doing as a founder. Can you walk through that and how that applies for newsletters?
Yeah, and Matthew McGarry is a great example because his revenue per user, per reader is probably much higher, right? It's the same reason where, going back to the example of if you had 100 CMOs on your list, you could charge such a high CPM for brands to get in front of that audience, where Morning Brew, The Skim, like such a broad news-based newsletter, like so many people like news, varying from like whether you are male, female, 15, 80. And like, so what do you even sell advertisers at that point when you have such a broad base and the only thing that's connecting them is they like current events and news?
Yeah, it's like Amex will sponsor that because they just want to hit some sort of internal reach number, right?
For sure,
the CMO
exactly.
is like, we need to hit 400 million people this quarter. So like Morning Brew can guarantee us, 2 million per day.
Right.
So like that's
two totally different games, right?
Right.
So like TAM, that's why I wanted to preface that with like the TAM conversation, because you can actually have a pretty small TAM and like dialed in audience. Julia's example is perfect. 1,000 people that are probably startup founders or early employees that she can then convert into consulting gigs, and she doesn't need a massive TAM to build $1 million business through her newsletter. Same with Matthew McGarry. So TAM's interesting, but I actually think we're at a point now where there's so many diverse ways to monetize your audience. Like you don't need to maximize TAM today. Like my newsletter probably does $300,000 to $400,000 a year. But like with its current size now, if I took it more seriously and like didn't have another like full-time job that takes up all of my time, like that could be a multi-million-dollar newsletter.
way more. Yeah, for sure.
So TAM's interesting, but I actually don't know if you're like starting a newsletter, if you need to think that I think the problem area is if your TAM is small and that's not a valuable TAM.
Well, I also think if you have a small TAM and don't execute well, then you're super fucked.
Super fucked.
Because I mean, that was my first business with like I had a basketball rebounding machine, and our TAM was like 400,000 parents in the U.S. And then we also didn't execute that well. So like it was just a really difficult business to build. And
How many of those 400,000 parents actually had a disposable income to be able to invest in like a
that was the numbers, like maybe 5 million total.
Gotcha.
And then 400,000 were like wealthy enough. And then like not only that, but out of those 400,000, how many of those like raw numbers, parents, like their kid cares enough to actually get them this product? Like,
sounds kind of dope. I kind of want one.
yeah, it was a cool product.
It's a cool
fun.
product.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was a dope brand, great experience, taught me everything. But it was the most valuable lesson I've ever learned, which was like you can have level 10 execution and a level 3 opportunity, and it just doesn't matter, right? And so I think what we're talking about is TAM is level 10 opportunity. If you go massive TAM and you 10 out of 10 execute, you turn into Morning Brew. It's a 9-figure business, right? Like, but you can also go small TAM and still execute okay. And I think it's really hard. Like I'm imagining this Julia lady is like executing very, very well, right? Because if you don't execute and you're like in a 5,000 follower area, like that's probably not going to be very lucrative.
Yeah. So TAM's something I think is not thought about as much, but I think there's ways to
Like a knob you turn,
Yeah.
like based on opportunity.
There's definitely like content with like tailwinds, right? Like AI is, if you assume that the AI market is going to continue to grow and these companies are going to continue to invest raise tens of millions of dollars. Like if you do anything tangential to AI, there's enough of a TAM there and you're riding a big trend. I'd also say like following the trends always isn't like the best strategy, right? Like crypto, when we first launched in 2021, almost all of our newsletters were crypto. Just because like that was the sign of the time.
Now they're
It's
AI,
like,
right?
Yeah, now they all pivot to AI 100%. Though. Like
Yeah,
that's the joke, and it's so spot on.
Next is peptides. They're all going to be peptide newsletters.
Dude, we should jump on that early. I like that a lot.
I was a peptide. We'll get into it.
Yes, but like that's also like a great strategy too of like who's the trusted brand in like peptides, because it's kind of like still underground. Like, can you actually build that trust early? You sign up to these newsletters.
Well,
Like,
and then the risk is like it used to be. This company, Peptide Sciences, ironically, just did get shut down. They were the biggest player in the space.
Did they?
Yeah.
I did buy peptides
Breaking news
from them.
on Sweat Equity. Yeah, Peptide Sciences cashed.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean that's kind of the risk, right? Of like being a trend follower and then like things change, things swing. I mean even right now it seems like AI is obviously like continuing to expand. It could be a bubble maybe, and it's like if you bet the farm on that, just like Web3, you could get like wiped out.
yeah. The biggest learning that I've had recently is from like Morning Brew being this like North Star of the newsletter ecosystem. I think everyone had this mental model of you have to have millions of readers and you need to get Apple as a sponsor that pays you $70,000 per newsletter, which granted is like fucking dope and awesome to be able to pull off. But Morning Brew grinded for 5 years to get to that point and like scale is such a difficult thing to do. And they have a massive TAM. Anyone who's remotely interested in current events and business news.
It always blows my mind that their daily podcast is like the #1 business podcast
Yeah, I was
on
texting
Spotify.
Brian about it a few weeks ago. I was like, I can't believe like
I think it's the #1 business.
it fluctuates. It fluctuates.
Neil and
Sometimes-
Toby are great at what they do, and like it serves a purpose of people commuting, going to work, and like wanting to listen to like the latest events. Like it's a great production. I don't think that they would be #1 if they didn't have a newsletter of 5 million people, right? Like so I think that actually speaks to like the dynamic of why I think a lot of people who are either YouTube first or podcast first should diversify.
It's just a
into
newsletter
email.
on a different medium.
Because the newsletter, again, rather than trying to fight the algorithm of one, anything on YouTube or Instagram, or two, the algorithm or like the rankings of like Apple Podcasts, if you have a newsletter that reaches 100, 200,000 people, every time you drop a new episode, you can guarantee that 200,000 people are going to receive in their inbox, like, hey, this episode just dropped. So I don't know, I think there's a lot of people that are still like somewhat dubious of like, should I be investing in a newsletter? And it's not like an either or. Like, I don't think if you're a video native or an audio native content creator that you have to drop everything for email, but it's such a complementary thing to have. Morning Brew and their podcast is like a perfect example. Colin and Samir have done it incredibly well, right? Started on YouTube, have a podcast. Now they have a newsletter that probably several 100,000 people, prints money, it crushes. And now they just pivoted into events as well. So they did the press published in New York City. Now they're doing an LA event as well.
It's so interesting you say that because I feel like I I know Colin and Samir. I've consumed a lot of their podcasts in the past. I probably follow them on social media. I hear about the events through the newsletter.
Yeah.
I don't hear about the events through their socials, you know? Like I've been aware of these events through their newsletter. And even though like I'm fully in their ecosystem, like I'm as tapped in, but the algorithms just don't deliver that to me versus like it's guaranteed that the email is going to hit me.
And it's just like people are busy and there's so much content flying around at all times. Like they probably do include it in their podcast and you just overlook it because you're like on the go or you're cooking lunch
that's
or
what
whatever.
I'm saying is I think the algorithm just didn't serve it to me, whereas the email is like a guaranteed like.
And it's like the multiple touch points, right? Like I think if anything, again, going back to the funnel concept, you want to be able to have as many different touch points and email I think is like one of the most effective for sure.
What are some of the most like lucrative niches in newsletters right now?
Yeah, I've brought up AI a bunch. I think that's one of them. We have like dozens of AI newsletters who are just printing money because there's so much. Like 11 Labs just raised an infinite amount of money, right?
Yeah.
And like if you are 11 Labs and you're trying to reach more people who would use your product, like you're probably maxing out Meta. You're using Google Ads, like newsletters, and when there's all these like super popular newsletters, and because of the medium and newsletter ads work so well, they're just pouring money into all of these newsletters. So AI for sure. Other niches that are doing well.
Are there any kind of like unexpected niches that are printing?
Yeah, there's, I mean, small like one-off examples. Like we have like
I feel like wine is just like a random one. Like I kind of want to just get educated on wine once a week.
there's like farmers like that. Like there's a newsletter that does like the most niche one that I've seen recently is golf course equipment, and they've built an entire newsletter around like manicuring your lawn and like the golf whatever, like all of the different equipment around that. But they're also a smart creator because they then started selling like digital products and ebooks as like lead magnets and everything else, which is like one of the big value props of like where we've been able to innovate a bit is I view newsletters like top of funnel. It's amazing to be able to promote your content and create content and reach people in their inbox. We have the ad network, which helps you monetize with sponsors. We have paid subscriptions, so you can charge $10, $20, $30 a month for exclusive content or whatever. But we've also diversified into like digital products.
So you have storefront.
We have storefronts, and we don't take a cut of revenue, unlike almost like everyone else in the creator economy. And so now that you have this like, so using this person who's writing about golf courses, now that you have this active audience of call it maybe 5,000 people who really care about golf courses, he's now upselling those people into digital products, which it took him an hour to create one.
100%
and he's
profit.
flipping them for hundreds of dollars. So I think that's actually kind of like the future of what we've seen early, and I believe what we are innovating and pushing on is we have these content creators and publishers who have a very engaged audience, and what are all the different ways that you can monetize that audience?
What's the because when I'm hearing that, like it sounds like you're kind of winning because you're just developing best in class tools and like kind of the economic infrastructure as well for a creator to build like an entire business on Beehiiv, right? And it's
For sure. That's the vision.
Is the next couple of phases, like could we distribute our podcast into the different platforms and then like have like kind of a community on Beehiiv? Like what are some of the roadmap features?
Really funny that those are the two examples you gave because those are the two things that we're working on right now.
I mean, logically, that's exactly what I'm hearing. It's
100%.
like I just want to host my entire creator business on Beehiiv.
And so we've pivoted to like our new like tagline is like operating system for the content economy. You could say creator economy, but like we also have like Newsweek and Time and TechCrunch.
Content. Yeah, the creator economy's kind of played out.
Agreed. So,
And content also now opens it up to brands.
Right,
at a
exactly.
completely different
So
level.
because like that's the friction that we always run into. We have Sean Puri and Cody Sanchez and Colin Samir. So we have like creators, but we also have TechCrunch and Time and Newsweek. And so our enterprise sales guys like, yo, you got to stop saying creator because like TechCrunch doesn't wake up and hear creator and like, oh, I want Beehiiv, right? So we've abstracted it a bit to content economy, but then we can also speak to brands and everything we're talking about, like the storytelling and the narrative kind of fits in with that.
But I think
as well.
it fits because like you started with creators and you landed and now you're expanding, right? And we always talk about this idea of land and expand, like start niche, do everything because brands are just following what the creators do. And so if you're first figuring out how the creators are going to succeed, then the brands are going to follow everything that the creators done.
And I'm also just thinking like, okay, so Circle is like a community hosting platform. And if we get back into what we were talking about earlier with personal brand, like I don't know who founded Circle. I have literally no idea, right? I would have to actively look that up versus like with your distribution that you've built in, you could just be like, we're launching communities on Beehiiv. And now all of a sudden that's like much more attractive to a wider creator base.
And I think you lay this out pretty eloquently in terms of like, now that you see the value of like having the audience, like what are the different like tentacles of like things you can get into to, one, provide more value to your audience and extract more revenue from them. And I think you hit on a few of the big ones that we're looking at now. Like we have a full website builder as well. And I think websites are making a huge comeback, especially with AI. So like AEO and GEO is like all the rage. And I know a few other website companies that are doing well because they position themselves as like, we are the most AI friendly website.
I've fallen for several AEO SaaSes for sure. Yeah. I've gotten got by those viral launch videos. Yeah. They all sucked.
Yeah. Yeah.
None of you were good.
So I actually don't even know which ones you're referring to.
Or, like one of them was like Meridian, not to like shit on them in public, but like it just like didn't deliver value, you know? It's just
And
like,
I think
but
it's
SEO is challenging because it's a long-term game too. So like,
And yeah, there's always been the problem with SEO and AEO. I'd say like the broader point is, I think people were like, why do I need a website? Like a lot of these creators of the past 10 years have been like, I'm Instagram native, or I'm YouTube native, and like I don't actually have a home base. And I think as these different social platforms have shown that they are unreliable for driving traffic to your business, like you can post a video on YouTube and sometimes it's 100,000 views, sometimes it's 5,000. Sometimes you have 100,000 subscribers and only half of them ever even see it in their feed. And so like these algorithms and these big tech platforms, like give and they take, right? Like it's so unreliable.
so interesting. You're kind of like, the more that we're having this conversation, I'm like, so you almost are going to start competing with like a Patreon. You're going to start competing with a WAP. Like there's so many different adjacent platforms that you could come for, you know, through this roadmap.
Nice because we kind of do compete with everyone. Like first it was like really just newsletters. It's like kind of like MailChimp, Substack, like Convert, like some of those. And then we launched a website builder. Now it's like Squarespace and Wix and WordPress.
This is like a VC's wet dream is this product.
And then we do paid subscriptions. And so then it's kind of Patreon.
Yeah.
We do digital products now. So you can think of like Gumroad and WAP and some of those. And then you mentioned podcasting community and some of the other things that we're doing. And I think most content creators and brands don't want to manage 7 different platforms. They don't want 7 logins, 7 subscriptions. And even though AI makes it easier to like be technical and connect things, like you still don't want to be connecting like your web page to like a totally different website or to a totally different newsletter platform to like your digital products.
Yeah.
You just want something that works really well, that's best in class, and that is like your home base for your business. And so I think the one like contrast from these social platforms to like what we're describing in like community website
it's like
newsletter.
owned audience,
It's like owned, yeah. Dude, that's like the 3rd time you said something like a second before I was going to say it.
Like, hire me, bro. I'm unemployed right now for what it's worth. I'm just a podcaster.
But owned audiences is like really interesting. And I think that like we've always like kind of like beat the drum of like newsletters are an owned audience, owned distribution. It's like reliable. But there's so many other spaces, and now you're seeing this contrast of like you can post on like I posted on Instagram yesterday, got very little engagement. It's a great picture, right? But like so like it's unreliable. But like if someone wanted to engage with like Tyler Denk's content, like where do you actually go for that? And like where's the home base? And I actually don't think there's a company that solved like this is your home base. That it can obviously link out to your Instagram and to your YouTube channel and to your podcast, but like your owned audience space is something that we're very bullish on.
For sure. Especially when we think like we talk about a lot about consumption time. If I can get someone to consume or spend more time with me and measure like consumption time, that's an interesting place to play for affinity. And you can't do that because there is no home base, right? There is no place where all of my assets live and you can link out to just about everything, where like then we can measure the amount of time that somebody's spending consuming my content is a powerful thing for creators and brands.
I mean, just clicking through someone's like, you know, call your owned audience website, right? Where it's like, because y'all have an interface, obviously, where it's like you could click into podcast, click into newsletter, click into short form even. I mean, like that's a place, one-stop shop where you could, and then you also have a digital storefront in there. Like there's just so many opportunities for
where do people go if they want Alex content? Like where's like home base?
There isn't one. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, I'll
Where would you, if someone's
I got, like IG, YouTube, but I have to say like go to IG, then go to YouTube. Obviously, you have the
mine's like a
newsletter.
link tree right now. It's just dumb.
And I don't use Linktree because like I always have a CTA in my bio, and it converts way better if it's not a Linktree. You know what I mean? But like I don't have
Good
a
alpha.
Yeah, that's good alpha.
Yeah.
My link tree is just dry.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't have a home base. Like the newsletter, I aggregate the most links of my stuff in it, but at the same time, there's no home base. Yeah. And I think that again, like that's a huge opportunity.
And like where, and like one step further is like, where's the place where people who love your content, where do they go to like meet other people who love your content?
I was also just, it's such a interesting thing when someone does want to deep dive you. Like, I'm sure you've had this before where you just see like on your notifications, it's like some random account will just like 17 of your posts. And you're like, wow, you just binge me for 30 minutes.
I mean, yeah, you were just with me for 20, 30 minutes.
Crazy. And it's like, it would be so sick if they did that. And then they also could just like get spun into like a newsletter, and then they could like read more about me and like watch a podcast. And all of a sudden, like they spent 2 hours with me, and like they're going to buy whatever you're selling,
It's like with all these like AI solutions too, like there's the signal there that this is like a very high intent person that's spending time on your Instagram where they just binge watch like 5 different YouTube videos. But like now going back to the funnel concept, like where do you push them next? Like how do you identify that signal and get them to then sign up to your newsletter, then subscribe to your podcast, and then like, oh, you have this new storefront drop where you're dropping like a new product and you want them.
Yeah, it's essentially like your own ecosystem.
I also think I'm curious if we've both kind of been talking about like, Instagram has been a little less fickle. It's been a little more fickle recently with like amplifying value-based content and authority-based content.
By one of my posts yesterday got no likes.
Yeah, bro. Instagram didn't want you to have motion. Yeah. And but like, I think my personal opinion is I think the news is particularly loud right now. I think AI is like just absolutely gobbling so much attention. Like people are less inclined to spend time with, value-driven content rather than, just some AI tip and trick, like a Greg Eisenberg type of tip and trick, where it's like, go vibe code your $5 million startup in 2 minutes. And it's interesting because it almost feels like an owned audience is the insulating layer against that, right? Where it's like, well, the culture has shifted, the algorithm's not favoring the style that we kind of built our audiences on, but we still have people that probably want to see us. I mean, it's insane that, 78,000 followers and like a post will get like 8,000 views. It's like those 78,000 people followed me.
That already volunteered that they wanted to see your content because they followed
want to see the content.
And I had a comment recently that somebody was like, dude, I haven't seen your content forever. And it was like, brother, I've been publishing every day.
I'm posting.
Yeah, I'm posting every single day, right? But that doesn't happen
People
anymore.
just want to consume AI slop or like a meme or whatever it is. And like, that's just a shifting algorithm decision that Zuckerberg has made. Yeah. And like, I always, the like rent, don't own, or you're renting your audience, you don't own it thing. It's like, you always read that and you don't really appreciate it until it actually is like throttling you. And you're like, damn, bro, like I could have been like accumulating this community in a much better way. And it'd be much better for me right now to have 15,000 in that diehard Beehiiv community
for sure
than 80,000 on IG that aren't seeing my shit.
Which again, that is the thesis of email, where like you can keep doing the Instagram stuff and the YouTube stuff, but it's like the email is actually a reliable channel.
But I'm almost more excited about the creator command center piece.
I am too.
Personally, when I hear it, because like I actually just don't consume email newsletters at the clip I used to. I was a big newsletter guy. I read The Hustle for years, and like I read some Morning Brew. You know what I originally read? I got you. The Skim was the first one I ever.
They were kind of the OGs.
Yeah.
When I first joined Austin at Morning Brew, like they were the inspiration. Like every morning we'd have like our little war room. He's like, yo, this is what the Skim did. And we would literally pull up the Skim's newsletter and we could see what they were testing, what headlines they were doing, their referral program, like all of this other shit. And like we would just kind of copy everything that they did. They were the ones who were the innovators before us.
And I don't even know. I mean, dude, I must have subbed to them in 2014. Like I don't even know how I found it back then. But I mean, because Discovery was just so much different.
It's a different game.
12 years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some of the creators or brands that are executing at extremely high level on Beehiiv that people should study and reverse engineer?
Yeah, there's like quite a few. I think Colin Smear is amazing, especially as they keep going into events. It's like the perfect culmination of like YouTube to podcast to newsletter to now events, and they have like merch and stuff as well. So I think as far as like being able, what they do differently too is like, I think a lot of creators start off on like the lazier side of, I've already put time into creating this YouTube video. My newsletter is just going to be a link to the YouTube video. And it's like, okay, dude, put in like a little bit more effort than that. What they do really well is they know their audience is like creators or aspiring creators. They have like their deep dives on YouTube and their podcast, but they also, their newsletters is just not regurgitating the same shit that they've done elsewhere. It's like creator economy news and tools and stuff. So like, I think they found like a really good balance. I'd also say selfishly like my newsletter, because you don't have to work so hard to reverse engineer, because I just am transparent and tell you how exactly that I did it. Like I'm at 120,000 subscribers. I have the paid sponsorships, so probably make maybe $250,000 off of paid sponsorships just from like different brands. I do events as well. So I host like a quarterly founder mastermind in Costa Rica It's like a $10,000 ticket. I choose 8 people that apply, which is another like out of the box thing to do, right? Like I think most people in email and even just like the creator economy, like paid subscriptions and ads. And like those are the true and tried ways. But if you are writing, for example, like there's a YouTuber, like a surfer YouTuber, and he was trying to figure out how to monetize his content better. And like the low hanging fruits, like, dude, just throw ads or do like a sponsorship. He ended up doing a surf camp with like 50 people. It was like $2,000, made $100,000 an event. And so I do think like shared IRL experiences or just other outside of the box ways to monetize your audience is so undervalued because it feels like YouTube has almost like made this whole creator ecosystem so lazy of just being able to monetize your content by flipping a switch to say, I want monetization on. But there are so many ways if you actually understand the value of your audience and why they're consuming your content that you can provide more value, whether it's events or webinars or digital products or anything. And so, yeah, I think there's like a few examples. I'm like very transparent about how I got from 0 to 100,000. You can like drop it in the links if you want. I have like a lead magnet thing that walks through exactly how I've done it. And like, again, like my full-time job, 99% of my time is all focusing on building Beehiiv.
Right.
So like if there's ever a bull case for newsletter, if I could turn this newsletter into a $500,000 a year revenue thing, when it's 1% of my time and focus, like if I actually had more time and effort to put into this, like I think I could double the revenue pretty easily.
I also think, I mean, you know, it's kind of the classic case of like, what is a founder's job, right? Like if you're the founder and CEO of Beehiiv and your newsletter is literally the capstone case study of, you know, how you can monetize without a ton of effort. Like that's one of the highest leverage things you can be doing is building your personal brand. It's like the very modern idea of like a founder as a creator is actually probably more about, it's like maybe more valuable than you even operating the business at times.
I'm pretty damn good at operating the business.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Not to take away from it, but like, you know, think about what it did for your ability to fundraise, right? Like
sure.
we just described that earlier. So when you combine the two, it's how you get a, you know.
And they kind of like own a
borderline.
culture on, I feel like you lead a specific culture around newsletters and creators on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
trying. I appreciate it.
There's always like the jokes about if you just like post the emoji of like the bee, like somebody will respond.
The easiest way to get any engagement from anyone on my team, or especially me, is if you tag us in anything, like we'll 100%
It's like respond in 5 minutes or something along those lines.
That's like a culture thing that you kind of like made sure.
Yeah. I mean, early days, like we grew a lot through Twitter. It was like people in this like little newsletter bubble on Twitter talking about growth strategies and design and whatever. And we were just like in the cut, kind of like responding with everyone. And then like for us, I'm very product obsessed. And so people are like, hey, this feature sucks. I'm like, okay, I see that. I'm leading the product. Like I'll respond, I'll find more information, we'll fix it. Also like great for like I think the gritty things that don't scale is really how you build a brand and then stand out as a founder. And when people are complaining and I can be like, okay, I hear you, I'll fix this. And then like 3 hours later, we're like, yo, we just shipped a fix for that. The brand affinity of that is like, yo, now I was just like,
You're just never gonna leave, dude.
I was just bitching openly on X because that's like what people do on X. But like the founder actually heard me, fixed it in like 3 hours, which is like absurd. And like now I have a better experience in the product and I was heard by their team. And I know that I have this lifeline of, for any other future problem that I have a response.
Yeah, maybe I don't bitch on X, but I'll go direct to them and they'll
That would be better. I'd prefer that for sure. But like just to know that, and someone once told me, like one of these investors I met with was like, you didn't just build like a newsletter platform, you actually just built an engine to solve other people's problems because like your product velocity is so high. People have a high degree of confidence that if you built XYZ feature that helped their creator business and they vented that and presented it to you, that you would actually build it and solve problems for them. I thought that was like a pretty interesting way of how we've been able to approach building product.
There was a time where I was dealing with, I forgot what it was specifically in Beehiiv, but I emailed you and you were just like, hey, let's get on the call. And then you gave me your number and you were like, hey, just hit me up, like just send me a text anytime you're dealing with something, I'll fix it real quick.
I feel like the biggest alpha as a founder is like doing the things that don't scale. I think most founders will jump into, oh, I can't, if we had 5 million users, I can never do that to everyone. So I'm just not going to do it at all. But I think it's gone such a long way. And I'm also a big believer in the thesis, like the platform is as immature today as it will ever be. Like a year from now, it should be 10 times better than what it is. So I'm doing everything I possibly can now to go the extra mile, knowing that like a future state will always be better than what it is today. I feel like if you take that mentality towards anything, it just keeps kind of compounding.
Who are some other founders that you looked up to? Because I feel like you have a lot of different, like very modern ideologies that were probably shaped by different like mentors and stuff. So like who are some of the people that shaped the way you approach building a startup?
Yeah, there's probably a few. I mean, Elon's kind of like the OG goat, right? Like, I mean, as far as like visionary and like tenacity to go the extra mile, like sleep on the factory floor. That's kind of like no matter what, like the reason why I've had quite a few failed relationships as well. It's like the company comes first before anything. And like if it's going to fuck up my sleep schedule or my relationship, but it's for the better of the company, like I'll do whatever it takes to do that. And so I think like obsessing over something and having that grit and passion towards something is like really hard to teach. So like Elon's been a pretty big inspiration there. I also love Brian Chesky from Airbnb. I just think like from like the design angle, he's like a unique founder that has like a design background and like you can see it in like how he's approached product. I think he's also he's been pretty good at like building in public and sharing like the updates from the platform. I think he's also incredibly transparent. So like I've heard him on quite a few podcasts and like almost everything he says like totally resonates with me. So I think the product speaks for itself.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you coming on. And for anybody that doesn't know you, plug everything about Beehiiv, plug everything that they can do to follow you, consume all your content, et cetera.
Yeah, for sure. So Beehiiv.com is like the platform that we've been talking about. So if you made it this far, hopefully you're familiar with Beehiiv.com.
With no E. With no E.
Yeah, we spell it like we don't know how to spell. So BEEHIIV.com. And then my personal newsletter is Big Desk Energy, not Big Dick Energy.
Yeah, you gotta say
but
it slow.
one and the same, honestly. But BigDeskEnergy.com is my newsletter.
Cool. Thanks, Tyler. That was fun.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming on, man.